My name is Jason Porter, and I lead the front-end team for FlyteConsole development at Union AI. And today we want to have something kind of new. We wanted to briefly share some of our design philosophies and assumptions that we bring into the design process for FlyteConsole, and then give you guys a chance as our community to speak into that process. And one of the cool things about open source is if you want something, you can just build it. But when we're doing the UI, because it touches so many different kinds of users and different use cases, we need to make sure that it kind of works for everyone. And so how we approach this problem is we kind of think of different user personas, and we have 3 of these personas in mind. So I'm just going to kind of share with you kind of how we see our users, and then at the end, definitely partake in this conversation. Tell us, what we got right, what we got wrong. So our first user is a data scientist. This is kind of like the author of like the tasks and the workflows. And we think they want to run their code on remote machines. They want to test their code with various inputs. And they do this because they're trying to tune performance. We think they use the UI to test and verify that their code works, to debug errors, and to access different versions and run different inputs. Another persona we have is the ML Infra Engineer. These are really strong coders, deep CS backgrounds, and they're kind of concerned with the product of Flyte. And so they want to ensure that workflows are business ready. They want visibility into status and logging. And we think they use the UI mostly to manage and orchestrate workflows as business tooling. And they use the UI for debugging sometimes, we think. But again, as they're really strong coders, we also think that sometimes they'll just log in directly to the box and debug that way. Our last persona is the business analyst. This is kind of like the end user of Flyte. And it's because they want to use Flyte for their business. There's like a business use case that they're using this for. And so they want to be able to run these workflows and obviously view their outputs. And they want control over the versions and inputs for specific kind of pre-baked business use cases. So that's kind of how we see the users whenever we're going to build a feature, whenever we're thinking about, like all the new things that are coming down the pipes. Those are kind of the assumptions that guide us. So this is the open part where I invite everyone to speak into this. Just go ahead and unmute and speak into this. What did we miss in any of those assumptions? Anyone have any comments?
Of course, I love to put Jeev on the spot. Jeev, Fabio, a lot of other folks, anybody.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, cool. Well, the next question. When you're using FlyteConsole for whatever persona you are, what are your current pain points? And think about this, like this will help us know what to build to make your lives easier.
I can talk about that. Sorry. So there's like a couple of things that when you use Flyte, it's very nice. But then if you want to run a workflow or something, then you always need to click on buttons, and you can't really you might have a version. You see all the versions that you have in Flyte, but then you can't click on that version and being like, okay, click on there and launch it. You always have to click on some very specific buttons. If you want to close a workflow, you have to click on the cross. You can't click anywhere else in the window. That's something that we're kind of used to already. And yet it's also missing a bit of like flexibility, because if I remember correctly, you have all your workflows, all your versions, but then you can't resize anything. And at one point, it's you're like, sometimes I like, okay, I just want to see, I don't care all about the 10 plus version that work correctly, I just want to see one. And then, that's what I can think about for now.
That's great. That's awesome feedback.
One thing
And just so
that
I'm, oh, go ahead, please go ahead.
no, please finish.
I was just gonna say, so just so I'm clear, are you saying that maybe you would like us to look into the ability to kind of resize some of the different workspaces? Is that kind of what?
I mean, I'm not connected to VPN now, but yeah, when you have a workflows, then you can see, you know, in that workflow, you can see the task and then the executions. And I'd like to be able to resize the different things, like different spaces between those.
Okay.
Miguel plus ones that he's saying that their users have also asked about the same thing.
I tried every day. I'm like, damn it, I can't.
Okay, good to know.
So maybe I go next.
Yeah.
Maybe for reference, we are currently in the phase of assessing Flyte and building a reference implementation. So we don't have a whole lot of practical experience with it. So maybe what I'm saying is already solved. But what happens very often for me is when I'm experimenting is that I'm launching a lot of workflows and some of them crash because I'm still experimenting and I can't delete them, or I haven't found out how to delete executions and workflow versions. Is that something that's not possible, or have I missed how to do it? Is it intended?
Good. So I guess I'll talk about this. So we don't, there is no delete in Flyte.
Okay.
It's I don't think it's like specifically by design, but it is intentional. What that means, the reason why we cannot delete is because, let's say if everything's immutable, so deleting here just means hiding, essentially. It doesn't really mean anything else. So we do support archiving. One of the problems that I found is that there's no archive support for every entity, and I think we should just want a global archive support. And one other problem is that the UI doesn't support any of these mutations, actually. And one of the reasons why the UI did not support for some time was because we didn't have role-based access control. So anybody can go and archive and delete. We are paranoid people. We do not like that. Even though we trust everybody, we actually kind of operate in a zero trust environment, right? The entire design of the system is almost zero trust, so that it's like, it is secure by design. So that being said, there is one API that's available on the UI that does not take the zero trust to completely, and that is like terminate. You can go to an execution and you can terminate. The only reason why we added it is we realized if we didn't do that, people would just hate us. But that being said, we would love to understand where are the reasons, what you would like to archive. It's extremely important, and what archive really means, what delete really means. Does it mean delete all the data behind it? Does it mean just delete it from the UI? I want to hide it, or does it, like, we would love, and I think these are, some of them are very trivial, just deleting from the database and hiding is super trivial. Deleting all the data behind it is a little less trivial. Another reason is what could happen is, because we allow referencing workflows and so on. If you delete a workflow and somebody else is referencing it, it's like, the famous thing in PM, somebody deleted the left pad or whatever, one of those packages, and boom, the entire world was crashing. So we are kind of, so even if you see the package registries, they don't allow you to delete stuff easily, right? And that's also the same reasons why we have designed it. So, but archiving, once you archive it, essentially gets hidden from most viewpoints. But if you're using it, you can still keep on using the archive version, and you will get the deprecated message.
Can I archive through the UI, or is that not possible?
Only from the CLI today.
Okay.
But
So I don't think I would want to delete. I would just want to not see, because what happens very often while experimenting that I create, I don't know how many executions, and the entire thing is cluttered with them.
Yeah.
And just saying, okay, look, filter for what I had to, like what I executed today, just hide it. That would be nice to keep an overview.
I agree. I think, Jason, we probably should support archiving in the UI, because there is a filter on the admin APIs that allow you to say, show me on archive things also. And so let's say, if, this is not really zero trust problem here. It's archived. It's like, it's gone. And then if you say, show me all, you should be able to see and retrieve anything that you're doing. So I think, and this is a huge ask, so we should support it for sure.
And I just want to say, Fabio, that was a fantastic comment. I mean, as you can tell, this has clearly been something that we've been thinking about too, but exactly like this, we want to understand exactly what it is, like what is your use case for wanting to archive? And if I hear you correctly, it's that there's a phase where you're just testing and you're seeing how it works. And then when you transition from that to business ready, you don't want to have like other business owners see all this other stuff. We're very much thinking about this problem, and your comment is extremely helpful, I assure you, because that's something we've been thinking about. So great job. Anyone else before I move on?
Yeah, I have another one, somewhat related maybe, because I've done some experiments today as well, and I ran into an issue. So I have a research project where some people created some basically crazy algorithms with in Python, some machine learning algorithms, and I'm just building Flyte workflows from it. But I don't really know the code, and I don't really know the performance characteristic, and especially how much memory these executions need. So I'm just experimenting. And what happened today was that I ran in a lot of out of memory errors, basically. So I did experimentation with adding the different memory to the task execution. And then what happened was that I got a failure, of course, when it was too low. But I just see there's a return value from the process 137 or so, which means the container has been killed. And I have to check the logs. So I think this is just something, if the UI, if this is a very specific error, but if the UI clearly says, tells me, okay, this is a memory error, that would be great. But of course, what would be even greater if we had some UI support for actually, I don't know, profiling or seeing in retrospective how much memory executions actually use, so because that would be extremely helpful to tune these things and so on. So
yeah. Can I add, maybe it was a big question, so let me explain. So the UI is driven by events from the engine, like propeller, right? Or plugins and so on. And so out of memory should show up as an error saying, but it's in text. It doesn't really show up as a special error saying out of error. Probably that's something that we should think about in the UI, because we do send that as an error code. So, the UI can show something special. But besides that, and I would love to know if you didn't see that, must be some case in which you're not sending that correctly. But so at Lyft and at Toyota and a couple other places, I think what we're doing is, once you start profiling at runtime, it's an expensive endeavor, especially because we start building Datadog almost, which is, and we are like, not right now. We don't think we have like a bigger fish to fry. But what we did is, if you use some of our open source dashboards, and then, of course, please contribute to them. They should allow you to see in retrospect what was the container's memory usage by Prometheus. And
yeah.
It's better to do it that way, in my opinion, even though I would love to put it like, if you were to ask me, yes, I would love to build this one complete experience.
Yeah.
But it's like building Datadog, and that is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I actually didn't really think much about it. I just went into this and I thought, okay, it would be cool if I could see how much memory this this task actually takes, so it makes my life easier to tune things. But yeah, of course, I think you're totally right. That's probably the best way to go.
Yeah. So, but what we have been thinking. So, I actually have been toying around with an idea of an events endpoint that actually gets emitted from the containers, much like weights and biases, right? Like it's like, but not for weights and biases. You can use weights and biases for weights and biases, right? But you can send whatever, some information, and then we'll allow folks to essentially, and we want it to be not in the critical path, so that let's say this server is down, this endpoint is down, doesn't mean your workflow should stop, because reliability is paramount and critical to us, number one, right? And so I would love to, Soren, if you're interested, would love to share the document, and then of course it will become an RFC eventually, and see if anybody within the community would be open to contributing this. Like it's completely doable. I think the design exists for this stuff within Flyte and Flyte and so on. And I think eventually in the UI, we can actually show all of that information. And so we could start off with something basic and just keep on improving this. So we think it's completely doable, because I do want the GPU stats and so on to be in there as well. I completely do.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Great feedback. Anyone? Oh, go ahead.
I have one thing. So Soren, thanks for bringing that up. Actually, that was an excellent point. And we're using essentially Prometheus and Grafana to track like our usage, our resource usage. But I think it would be nice, to your point, to be able to specify arbitrary links to attach to tasks and whatnot. And so how we have view logs, it'd be kind of interesting to say view stats and then have that template out to Grafana or whatever you want to template out to. So you can run, not just Grafana, but literally any other Datadog or something, and then have it point to the Datadog URL. The reason for that is because nobody's gonna go to whatever monitoring dot something. They just want to go to the execution and then click on that link to view their logs or view their stats. And I think that that would be a pretty good stopgap until we have this thing that Ketan is kind of thinking about. So I don't know if that already exists, but I think it should be fairly simple, I think.
Yeah, can somebody write a spec on that? That would be fantastic. At least what you would want, the requirements, because we've actually, believe it or not, 2-3 years ago, we talked about this, and we realized that everybody has these different platforms. There's no one monitoring platform almost, right? Prometheus almost seems like the one, but Prometheus is not a platform. It's like an agent that dies all the time. So how would you want this? And we would love to hear feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely write it up, but very trivially, it would just be exactly how the logs are set up, right? Because logs don't care what the backend is, and so the same way, we don't want our metrics to care what the backend is. And I'm sure the metrics URL path would have some indication of what the pod name and stuff that we can use for templating. So we just set up a template, an arbitrary log entry, give it a key, set up a template, and then let Propeller or admin fill out that template for us so that we can click on the link to get us to the metrics page. But yeah, totally. I mean, not I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. It's just oh, it would be nice, but
yeah. Even an issue would be fantastic. Just
okay, yeah, I'll do that.
We can all collaborate would be fantastic. I don't think it's too hard to. So we should get something basic. It's just that will it work for everybody? I have no idea.
Okay. The other point I wanted to bring up was something that we've talked about for a while, which is the ability to have arbitrary tags attached to your executions. And so when you go to the executions page, you basically get this paged all the executions that ever existed. And we'd love to be able to say, oh, this was for this experiment, or be able to tag it with arbitrary tags and just kind of use the UI to search and filter by tags to get the right executions that we care about. And that could be used for things show me the ones that I ran with this version of the experiment. I mean, I guess the version already exists, but to be able to make that a little bit more extensible, where we can specify our own key value pairs would be kind of nice. There is an issue for this. I just I think it basically died because we never followed up, but would be happy to pick that back up.
Yeah, I think Lyft also is interested in this, and I know I don't know anybody else, but in machine learning, so the way we think about this, to be honest, the admin API is also a model server, right? Like it is a model repository. So you can retrieve models from there, and tagging really just helps. Like you could add SEMword style tagging on your model, and you can just retrieve a model from it. So yeah, we're extremely interested in this also, Chief. Issues, and please, please upvote them, folks.
One thing came to my mind when I heard that. Would also be nice to be able to set a tag from within the workflow, because what I currently think about is how we can integrate this with MLflow. We use it for everything that you use MLflow for. It would be nice to get the link to the run in the tracking server from MLflow in the UI of Flyte, so that I can just see, that's my execution. Let's look at how it performed, and then I can immediately open in a new tab the link to the tracking server. So if from within the run there would be a way to say, I want to tag this execution with something, and then I just add the link there, that would be very helpful to quickly jump to, be it weights and biases or MLflow or any lineage tool you want to use.
Absolutely. I think so there are two good issues here. Chief, when you talk, it does make us better. So please talk more.
Okay, anyone else before we, this is great, by the way, but anyone else before we move on? Okay. We're kind of light on time right now, so I might skip this question unless anyone has strong feelings on this, of which features you use most. Okay, we'll skip this question. And then finally, I think we just kind of answered this, but is there anything else that we haven't talked about, like completely out of left field, that you would like to see built?
Jason,
Okay.
can I suggest one thing? Like maybe let's, in every alternate week, let's do this. Like maybe let's spend 5 minutes on this, so that we can keep on collecting and let people's. What you did is you primed their juices. Now let's hopefully they can come back and say, all right, awesome. These are 15 things.
I love it. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys so much. And we will do this again. And yeah, I will pass this off.